What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Thanks again for tuning in. I had already posted one video earlier today of our live trading session. In that video, you guys seen me make about $1,700 trading. Well, I ended up doing a little bit more trading throughout the day, seeing some good moves, some good volatility that I ended up taking advantage of. So all in all today, really we're at $7,145 green. After commission, it's more like 6,600 or so, or 6,500 with some borrow fees. So what we're gonna do in this video is really walk you through like every single one of those trades and explain what I was doing when I was doing it, rather than just watching the live trading video. So let's get into this. It's gonna be a lot of tickers to cover, so we'll try to do it fairly quickly. Now, do understand, as I'm going through this now, the levels are all going to be different because the strategy that I trade theoretically changes throughout the day. The price levels that we work off of, they change consistently at all times throughout the day. So as I go back to explain this, what I'm going to be explaining won't entirely be there to see because much of it could have easily changed. So we'll start here with quad, where I made $1,681. So we'll go over to quad. So here's the stock quad. To put it simply, I pretty much went short on this top. It was running up. I went short 5,000 shares and held my 5,000 shares short all the way down pretty much into these prices of 423. So again, it was a short play, starting all the way up around the 489 prices, 5,000 shares or so, all the way down to, somewhere in the lows of 415 or close to. Most of the trade came out down here in this dip, and then I took a little bit more off here to fully close out the trade. But all in all, it was a short trade, 5,000 shares here on quad and down. So at the time of me making this trade on quad earlier today, the stock was overbought. So think about it like this. This blue line that you see up here at 483 was really right, it was like right here, right where I drew this price level. That's where the blue line was at the time. So at the time, the way that I would read this is down here where this red dotted line really was the blue line. And we would say, okay, this is overbought by that far. So if the blue line was all the way down at 430, and the price is trading at 489, we would say target is all the way down to like 430 because the market is extremely overbought. So, and then the other thing that made me want to short this was when I looked at the long-term chart, you could see that we were overbought on the 4-hour chart. There's the blue line on the 4-hour. We were overbought on that, and you'd see that we were running right into this 490 resistance that we had previously sold off from. And then secondly, if we look at the daily chart, you would also see that the long-term yearly chart resistance existed all the way at 503. So when I was shorting in like 489 and 470 in that area, I was okay seeing the price go all the way up to 5 and maybe over 5 by a little bit because essentially we would still have been trading up to resistance. All right, next one on here is LAZR. So LAZR was a bottom bounce trade. So if you look at the stock LAZR, here's the daily chart. The stock's just getting annihilated, fell all the way from 47 down to a low of like 23.20 today, 23.30, okay? So at the time of this trade, let's go in and look at it. At the time of this trade, it was a bounce trade. It was going long a couple thousand shares down here. I think I traded about 3,000 shares, did a little dip, sold some, then bought this dip and sold that move up. So essentially, this was a couple thousand share trade off the bottom here, starting long starting long a couple thousand here in this dip, down at 23.87, and pretty much trading up most of this bounce and then taking the trade off before it ends up selling back down. That trade netted $1,293. So the reason that I traded the bounce here on LAZR, primarily, number one, at the time of this move going down, the blue line was right here. Okay, so when this price was falling, it was actually falling into the blue line at the time, which based on my strategy and approach, that is support. Okay, so on the 1 minute, 1 day time frame, at the time I'd made my entry, the price was falling into, at the time, the blue line, which to me is support and I'm supposed to buy. And then secondly, if you look at the volume here, I'm going to pull up the volume. The volume was all buying down there. And then if we pull up our ultimate volume system, it gives us a little bit more of a clearer picture on the volume. You would see that all the selling kind of stopped, and then we shifted right to buying. And we had pretty good buying volume come in there in comparison to selling volume. So that was another kind of indication to take the long, and our TTM squeeze was flashing yellow. And then the other most important part that gave me the confidence to take big size and realizing we would probably bounce here was when we look at the daily chart, you would see that the price was falling all the way down on the day right into this green line. So as the long-term chart came down into like that 2370, 2340, that was a long-term trending support line that I had. So I figured that would sort of be the bounce on the day. So waited for the price to come down to the long-term trending support, intraday trending support, tracked volume, use a little bit of TTM to give me the signal to essentially go in long on that bounce. All right, next one is BCDA. BCDA for me was, I did a little bit of shorting on it today. Wasn't really anything crazy, but to put it simply, all I really did with BCDA was I did a short scalp here and then another little short scalp here, and ended up crashing afterwards, but I pretty much just did 2 short scalps up here in the high, and that was it. Really nothing crazy there. All right, next one on the list is SPCE, which was a bottom bounce long. All right, so we traded the bounce on SPCE. What we did was a 1,500 share long on the bottom here and pretty much sold it all the way up to this red candle right there. So traded from the bottom, 1,500 shares long, to that red candle, did a bottom bounce on SPCE. Now, the reason we did a bottom bounce on SPCE was, number one, at the time when SPCE was coming down to those prices, it was on the blue line, okay? And then also, if you look right here, you see this red line, the darker red line in there, that's a long-term 50 moving average. So that is the yearly chart 50 moving average, okay? So not only were we on the blue line for intraday support, but we were also coming really close to long-term 50 moving average, you know? And then the daily chart or the 4-hour chart, okay, and then the 4-hour chart, if you look, was getting close to this trending long-term regression level. So at the time of the bounce when I was buying SPCE, I went long 1,500 shares, but was also willing to and okay with it going all the way down to a low of 23.88. So I was going long at like 24.20 maybe, or 24.30 or something like that. And was willing to see it come all the way down to 23.88, and then I would have dip bought more on the day if it had gone that far. So reason for this trade, good volatility to the downside, running into our blue line, which is 3 standard deviations on the downside, very close to a long-term 50 moving average, and then also coming into the regression trend price, which we're okay if the stock ended up going lower than our original entry price because we would have had a more lower risk dip buy off of 23.88. All right, next one on the list is Geovx, where we made $2,227. So Geovx was another short trade. Let's go look at the 1-minute chart here. All right, so Geovx was a short trade. Essentially, this thing was running and it was overbought. So I started shorting a couple thousand shares on this candle. It got halted, it gapped up, and then we went to short more. And believe it or not, I made a mistake on this trade. I made $2,200 and I still made a mistake. The mistake that I made on this one was I had a pretty strong, you see this red dotted line here? I'll show you how I got it, but that was the top resistance I had for the day. And I clicked the limit order so that when it unhalted, if in the event it just squeezed straight up to 425 really quick, I would have a limit order set at 422. And so I was trying to set a limit order for 5,000 shares short. I was already short like 3,000 or 2,500 before the halt. And then I wanted to add another 5,000 shares short. And long story short, I didn't have enough shares to go 5,000 shares short. That's why my limit order wasn't working. I'm like, well, that's weird. Why isn't it working? So I didn't really come to until afterwards. I'm like, oh, you dummy. I didn't have 5,000 shares available to short. I only had like 4,200. So if in the event I would have put a limit order for 4,000 here at the 420 mark after it unhalted, I would have gotten filled. So what that really means is my average could have been higher on the trade on this short than I actually got it. So we go short 2,500 shares. It squeezes up, and I start just hammering short on this candle, and then I think I end up fading like it was like 6,500 shares. And I covered into this low here. I didn't get this next corrective breakdown. It's kind of salty about it. But all in all, at the time of the trade, this market was over the blue line by a lot. It was getting overbought. People were chasing it up. So I just decided to sell into them, anticipating that the move was really going to be down and that once it started to break down, traders would stop out, and then I'd covered into them. So the reason that I would pick the 420 mark as the top tick resistance point on the day is because of this. So when we go and look at the 180-day 4-hour chart, I believe it is. Nope, that's a lie. It's actually the 1-year day chart. So when we go and look at the 1-year day chart, you will see that you see this little dotted line in there. I'll delete my level. So let me delete this red line. Okay, you see this dotted line right there. So essentially the price was spiking up on the day. On the intraday chart, it was way overbought, and then it was running into the long-term half standard deviation mark here. So since the market was already way overbought on the intraday chart and we were running into the long-term trending resistance, to me there was no way they were going to break this kind of deviation resistance mark on the first try because we were already so far overbought on the intraday play anyways. So that's primarily why I was going short in the first place, and then that's why I also was trying to put limit orders up at the 420 mark, knowing that that was probably where the top tick resistance was going to be. So that trade again netted $2,227. All right, next one is OCX. This one was a loser of $595 a day. I thought it was going to be a long for reasons that we're not going to go into entirely in this video because I already made a video on it and that would just take forever. So anyways, the reason I wanted to be long on it is because it was an easy to borrow stock on Thinkorswim, and I thought a bunch of people were going to come in and try to short it, and we were actually going to squeeze them long. So did one long trade here, top of this candle, didn't work and got stopped out, and then did another little long like in here, didn't work. I didn't even really stop out. It ended up being a break-even trade. So pretty much thought we would go long, break through this previous high candle and squeeze out. Didn't work. Lost on that trade, and then lost on this little dip by bounce that it was pointless. All right, next one on the list is Ruby, which we're not even going to touch on because it was actually a swing trade from yesterday. So really, I just was short from yesterday. Stock dropped a little bit more today, and I covered the short. So nothing to really cover there. VTVT is another big winner on the day, $1,139. So at the time I wish I would have seen this earlier, but by the time that I actually saw VTVT, it was trading right like here. So I ended up taking, I can't remember for sure, but I ended up taking a couple thousand shares short on VTVT right here. And essentially covered into this big drop in the morning. And then I re-shorted VTVT back up on these candles and covered into this low. And then I think I took the rest of my short off here. So I was short from like up here, covered this move. Then I added short on top of this candle, covered into this move. And then I added short before the open and basically faded the first morning drop and covered that move. So 3 short plays. Starting from pre-market, short down, cover this dip, short the high of that pop, cover this dip, and then short before the open and cover that drop. At the end of the day, the reasons for being short on VTVT, at the time initially stock was way overbought pre-market. Reasons why we were short on the day was because if you look at the daily chart, VTVT was already well overbought. So I just figured that the move we were seeing pre-market was just some sort of relief bounce from all the people that were currently short from previous days, and it was just going to get sold back into. And if you look too, let me delete these old drawings real fast. 1 second. So yeah, if we delete these drawings real quick, Thinkorswim's moving slow, and look at the levels. I think there was also a daily chart level I might have been trading off of. No, I wasn't. Another way of looking at this, though, is this is the 4-hour chart. When I looked this morning and VTVT was trading over the blue line on the 4-hour chart, I knew that on the 4-hour time frame, it theoretically was overbought and the trend would still be down. So main thing for playing bearish VTVT is overall it was bearish from long-term charts. On the intraday chart pre-market, it was very overbought. All right. Next one is SLS. This will be a good learning one for you guys. All right, so it was a short on SLS, and the stock ended up tanking out way more today than, but anyways. So VTVT, or not VTVT, sorry, SLS. So SLS netted $397 on this trade. Pretty much went short 1,000 shares on, I think it was here. I think we went short 1,000 shares on this red candle. It squeezed up a little bit. We just waited for the, so essentially put it this way, the stock was overbought. By the time it was trading up here at 824, it was overbought. So we ended up going short 1,000 shares. Traders ended up trying to trade this like bull flag here. So give me a second, I'll draw it out for you. A good portion of the market traded this little like bull flag sort of ascending triangle setup. So they traded long out of here to break the stock up. Little did they know that the stock was overbought since like basically down here. When they were buying it, all these prices were overbought. So buying this flag pattern, they were breaking out of flag pattern into what was already way overbought and continuously overbought territory. And then obviously they bought the flag and then they stopped themselves out, and then I covered into this low. So we went short here on the tops of these candles, waited for the traders to essentially stop out, and as they stopped out, we covered into this low point here around 726 for $397. And then the last ticker I traded on the day, which ended with $116, was SLDB. I ended up actually giving some money back on this. But the first trade for us on the day was a couple thousand shares. So I think we went 3,000 shares short here, then added up, a couple more thousand shares short here. We were in a total of 9,000 shares short. And then it dropped out to this price and we covered it. I think it was up like maybe like 800 or 900. No, I think it was up like $700 on that play. So it was a challenging trade. It wasn't very easy, but I ended up making about like $700 or something like that. And then I tried to trade SLDB later in the day here in this dip with, like 8,000 shares, and the continuation move just didn't work. So essentially what we did was we broke out of this flag pattern. Okay. That's kind of off. Let me redo it with a different level. So with SLDB later in the day, this longer term flag pattern setup broke out on the day. And then as it dropped down so it broke out, and as it dropped down to retest the breakout level, I started buying long to see if we could hold the dip and force the price up. And sure enough, it didn't work. So I stopped out, lost a little bit of money, and I'm giving back like $500 or $600 or something like that. So that is the full trading day. There's the P&L. So we traded 10 tickers today and was green on 9 out of the 10. So from perspective of green or red basis on tickers, a 90% accuracy for the day. So phenomenal trading day. Hope you guys liked the video. Hope you learned something new. Feel free, leave a thumbs up, comment down below. I always love to see what you guys have to say. And if you guys would like to join us in our trading room, feel free to do so. Links in the description. You can join us. We trade, in the mornings every single day. Market opens and we trade. We start our trading room at 8 in the morning and usually go to about 11. So if you guys want to join us, try to pick up something new, learn something else, gain a little more edge in the market, feel free to join us. If not, no hard feelings, and just keep tuning into our videos on YouTube. That's all we ask. So everybody take care. Have a great rest of your day, and I will see you on the next one.